fairly, like there's a fairly obvious opportunity in electric aircraft, because all transport will electrify over time, with the exception of rockets, ironically. Yeah. There's, I think there's two areas which, they're fraught with issues, but it's one of those things where if you don't do something, maybe not doing something is worse, like on the AI front or on genetics, So those are the two things I think, besides sustainable transport, the internet, and making life multiplanetary, rewriting genetics and AI, the latter two are the ones that can most change destiny of humanity, but they're really dodgy. So maybe I'd try to do something in one of those two areas, but they're fraught with difficulty.
Elizabeth Holmes was here earlier, spoke during the lunch hour. Do you think about genetics and longevity and trying to sort of avoid? Your friend Larry Page is investing in a business hoping to end death.
I don't. I'm not actually a huge proponent of longevity. I do think that having a good life for longer is better. Like you'd want to address the things that happen to you when you're older, like dementia and so forth. Those are pretty important. But I'm not sure I'd sort of actually want to do that. I want to get into the genetics thing, but it is something that's going to fundamentally change humanity, and along with AI. So
you don't want to live forever, so that you can actually get to Mars?
I definitely don't want to live forever.
How many years do you want to live?
I don't know, 100 good ones.
100 good ones or 100 more good ones? You're 44?
100 good ones in total, I think, is probably fine. Maybe a bit longer.
Sam, where would you put your money? You're the investor here.
Well, we try to invest in a very broad range of technologies. So we funded an electric airplane, or funding an electric airplane company. We've done AI companies. We've done.
How realistic is the electric airplane, by the way?
I think it should work. I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. The math should work. I think I no huge surprise, but I'll agree with Elon on those two areas. I think if you could pick two things that I'm not already working really hard on, AI, having AI go in the positive direction, which I really think it can, and I think thinking about sort of genetic technology.
Genetic technology. I made it unfair for you because I said we had to take Solar City out and we had to take the cars out, so we didn't get to really talk about energy. But I imagine, how big a thing do you think energy all in? And when you think about both your investments and what you're doing, is something that is one of the things that you need to tackle?
Well, I think sustainable energy is the most important problem that we face this century. That's like a known difficult thing that we have to solve. Like if we continue to rely on burning hydrocarbons, the future is going to be quite bad, and the vast majority of the scientific establishment believes that, and the evidence, I think, is, for anyone with a scientific background is unequivocal. So we got to solve sustainable energy. I'm a big fan of solar because we got this big fusion ball in the sky called the sun, and it shows up every day. So if we can use solar energy plus batteries, we can actually have a complete solution for sustainable energy generation, and then we need to use it in a sustainable way, which is where you need the electric transport. So.
The thing I would add, I think getting the cost of sustainable energy down super low is probably, short of friendly AI, like the most important thing we can do for sort of quality of life of the poorest half of the world. I think that every time I look into this, it's really amazing how much the cost of energy and the quality of life correlate.
What about nuclear energy? You have some investments in nuclear energy.
Yeah, I mean, what I've always said is I think the end state of the world is a combination of nuclear and solar, probably 80-20 one way or the other, sort of terrestrial-based nuclear. I think fusion is likely to work at some point in the next couple of decades, and that's a really big deal.
What about the risks of nuclear energy?
Of fusion?
Of fusion? Yeah, I assume there's some risk. There's no risk?
Not really.
Zero? I'm an idiot? I don't...
No. No, I mean, with fusion, the difficulty is keeping it going. With fission, you have some meltdown risk, although there's new technology on the fission front that makes the meltdown risk extremely low. But with fusion, the great difficulty is keeping the fire from going out. It's quite hard to sustain a fusion reaction. Unless you have something very big like the sun, and where you have the sun has gravitational confinement of the fusion reaction. So since you can't do gravitational confinement on Earth, you have to do some sort of electromagnetic confinement, one form or another, or a kinetic confinement by slamming things into each other. So it's quite tricky to prevent a fusion explosion from not immediately extinguishing.
Okay, I didn't do so well in science, so we're going to try to move along. Why would you ever want to live on Mars?
It looks like a great adventure to me.
No, really, I want to...
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Mars thing is really, like, if you say what is going to be really important to the preservation of civilization or life as we know it, more than just, humanity, because, of course, we would bring life as we know it to Mars. And there's no life that we can detect on the surface of Mars. There may be some subterranean bacterial life, but on the surface there isn't anything. So this would be the extension of life to another planet, or life as we know it to another planet. And I think would make a huge difference to the probable lifespan of human civilization and life as we know it. So it's sort of like an insurance policy, a life insurance policy for life collectively, and so it's probable.
Because you think global warming. What do you think is going to happen here? That's going to.
I do want to be clear. This is a. I mean, I think it's important that we become a multi-planet species, not a single planet species, but on another planet. So this is if we. It's like what kind of future do you want to have? Do you want to have a future where we are forever confined to one planet, or one where we are out there exploring the stars and on many planets? And I think the latter one is far more exciting and inspiring, because the former is basically waiting around until some extinction event. So, because eventually there will be one. It might be quite far in the future, but it also might not be far in the future. So there's really two main reasons, I think, to make life multiplanetary and to establish a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. One is the defensive reason to ensure that the light of consciousness as we know it is not extinguished or lasts much longer. And the second is that it would be an amazing adventure that we could all enjoy vicariously, if not personally.
I want to talk about something else that's compelling, which is Tesla.
It's really nice.
Talk about the X.
It's an SUV.
It's an SUV, but here's what I was going to say: $132,000. How many people are really going to buy this thing?
So the first cars that are produced are sort of fully optioned version. So it's not like a base price of $132,000. It's and we'll have a version that's still expensive, on the expensive side, but before any incentives would be about $75K next year. With incentives and whatnot, it's maybe 65. So it's still expensive, but it's not as crazy as 132.
Right.
And then in a couple of years we should have the Model 3, and that'll be starting price of $35,000. So it's a smaller car, but it's a lot more affordable.
Okay. You've invested in Twitter. In Tesla.
Yeah.
You own a Tesla.
Yeah.
Why? What is this going to become in your mind?
You sure you don't want him to answer?
Yeah, we know what he's going to say.
Look, I mean, I think as most people who own one think, it's the best car. like out there. I had a Roadster before a Tesla Roadster, which was not the best car. But the Model S, it really is. Like, it's the best car on the market. And I think that people think of this like existing car companies, but actually, this is like a software company with a car attached to it. And it's, you just like, you sort of point and click. You like point the wheel somewhere, you push the thing down, and it just kind of gets there. It doesn't make noise. It's very reliable. The software actually works. It's the only car with good software. So I think people really like it. Now, yeah, it's like really expensive still, but I think, I'm confident that a mass market Tesla will do very well. And I also think the other electric cars I've driven feel like many years behind.
Right. You talked about this being a software company. Do you think of yourself as a software company?
I think we're a software and a hardware company, but the software component does become increasingly important. So you got to get both right, because it's a holistic product experience. But its software is increasingly an increasing proportion of the problem, particularly as you get to autonomy. So
there is a view, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, that you are building autonomous functionality and other driverless-like functionality into the car without advertising that it's in there, and that one day you are going to flip a switch and the car is going to start just driving.
No, not quite like that. But we are going to upload new software soon, and this is not actually a secret or anything. We have version 7 of our software, which turns on highway autopilot, so the car will be able to steer by itself on highways or any kind of road that doesn't have really steep, sharp curves on it, and then also it'll steer quite well in traffic. So those are the two scenarios where it's I think going to be quite good at steering, that's in public beta right now. So we have 600 or 700 Tesla drivers, owners that are testing the auto steer software.
Go ahead.
I think full self-driving cars, not Tesla specifically, but just in general, are likely to get here much more quickly than people realize.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
If you ask most people, they'd still say that's 10 to 20 years away. And I actually think we'll have sort of like full point-to-point autonomous driving in a few years. It won't be uncommon.
A few years, like 2 or 3 years?
3 or 4 maybe.
Where are you on
know
that?
better.
I agree. I think that's something on the 2 to 3 year time frame is likely for it to be technologically. I mean, you'll be able to demonstrate it, but you won't be able to go to fully autonomous until you get regulatory approval.
That'll take longer.
So there's a time difference between when it is technologically possible, in a general sense, so that not just like in a very tightly mapped situation like, say, Mountain View or Palo Alto,
right?
But in a general sense of like, can it do point to point virtually anywhere?
Right.
I think that's only 2 to 3 years away. But then approval from regulators of having it be autonomous is anywhere from 1 to 5 years after that, depending upon the location, right. Because the regulators have to be convinced that it is substantial. I think they'll want to see that it's significantly more, significantly safer than cars that are driven by people.
I want to open it up in about 5 minutes, so I just have a couple more questions to get to you. And so if you guys have questions in the audience, get your shot on goal in just a second. I want to talk about entrepreneurship, because both of you are entrepreneurs. You invest in them. You are one. And you think about this a lot. Your old pal, Peter Thiel, likes to say that he would not invest in somebody who's over the age of 30 years old, that it should be the cutoff. You're 44 now. He's invested in you.
Yeah, I guess make some exceptions.
But you may be the exception to the rule. As somebody who invests in companies every day, do you think there's a cutoff? There's a lot of people out here who are over the age of 30. Are we done?
We've said this before, but when we've looked at our data, the mean age of entrepreneurs we fund is just around 29 or 30. So there's obviously lots of over 30 entrepreneurs that we fund, some of which have gone on to create multi-billion-dollar companies. So I think certainly you can't say it's impossible for people over 30 to create companies. That's ridiculous. And we plan to continue to invest in people of all ages. The correlation that we've noticed is that if you look at the really successful companies we've had, the multi-billion-dollar companies, the average age for those founders does skew significantly younger, but the success rate of founders of this binary, is the company a success or not, skews older than 30. So younger entrepreneurs, I think, tend to take bigger risks. Maybe they're willing to work on these very long time horizon projects, but that's the only correlation we see. I think it would be a crazy strategy to say I'm never going to invest in anyone over 30.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's...
I don't think Peter meant that either.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely start a company at any age and be successful. I mean, it's really just a question of, like, do you have a good idea? Are you working really hard? Are you able to attract a great team and motivate the team? And that's sort of really what matters.
But you've had multiple ideas. And there's another view, by the way, which is that you can only really have one great idea, right? That everybody sort of has maybe one great idea.
It's not really the idea. I mean, like there's that old saying, it's 1% inspiration, I think, and 99% perspiration. I think is generally true. I mean, a lot of times, like, companies start out with an idea that's actually wrong, but they adapt quickly enough to get it to something that's right.
Right.
And I can say, like, at the beginning of Tesla, we started out with we started the company with 2 false premises, like, that would turn out to be, like, really dumb. One was that we'd be able to license the drivetrain technology from a company called AC Propulsion in Southern California, and that it would just work. That totally didn't work. And then we also thought we'd be able to adapt the Lotus Elise chassis at low cost and be able to essentially put the AC Propulsion drivetrain technology in a Lotus Elise chassis, and then just build that quickly and sell it, and that would be okay. But like I said, the AC Propulsion technology did not lend itself to any kind of cost-effective, reliable car. It was okay for, like, a small prototype, but not for a commercial product. And then the Lotus Elise. That ended up being worse than if we had designed a car from the beginning, because we ended up changing like 96% of the components in the car, and invalidating all of the crash results and all the safety stuff. The car ended up being 30% heavier, it had to be longer, and it ended up being like if you had a house in mind, and instead of actually building a house from scratch, you got some existing house, and ended up knocking everything except one wall in the basement out. And it would have been better to just build the house from the beginning. Right. So basically, Tesla was started on the basis of 2 dumb ideas. But we managed to, it was a tough one to overcome those two issues, but we managed to get past them. That's I think the more important thing is, like, start somewhere and then, really be prepared to question your assumptions, fix what you did wrong, and adapt to reality.
How do you run 2 companies at the same time? What does a day in the life of Elon Musk actually look like?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend running 2 companies. It decreases your freedom quite a lot. So my day is probably a bit different than people think it is. I mean, most of my time is actually spent on engineering and design. So that's probably, I don't know, like 70% of my time. Like press stuff like this is maybe 2 or 3% of my time. It's really, really tiny. And I'm going to reduce it even further. It's probably like 1% of my time.
Elon Musk, Sam Altman, thank you guys.